Welcome back. So at this point, you probably have already received the transmissions from the Knossos Palace as well as the Phaistos Palace in Crete. What came through in that transmission was there and then what I felt. And at this point, after finishing and coming back from the Phaistos Palace, there were more information that came through with regards to how these two palaces actually weave together, they're interlinked, and how it relates to certain themes that I've been receiving, and how it's also linked to Egypt. So everything is kind of coming together like a puzzle piece, and this trip to Greece and the trip in Egypt seems like it's so interconnected that I can't even ignore the fact that it is. And even in ancient times, I just came back from the museum. There were a lot of similarities in terms of all the archaeology that was found, the things that were found, and the interaction between the Greeks as well as the ancient Egyptians. So yeah, it cannot be ignored. And it's very interesting to have felt it energetically even before knowing about the history and the mythologies and all of these things, which is very interesting and funny to me, because it feels like my guides, the universe, knows that if I were to learn all of this or know all of this to begin with, then it would limit my understanding and my perception and the ability to feel into what it really is. So yes, understanding the myths, understanding history is important, an important piece as well, because all these stories, I believe, have a deeper meaning behind what it is on a surface level. And how do we decode that is to be able to feel into the different places, to be able to discern for ourselves what is coming through for us and what it means to us personally. So every guide, every person that tells a story, that shares with you about the history of a certain place or the meaning of a certain place, have understood it and integrated it and processed it with their own lens. And what they share is their own unique flavor of the story. And therefore, it is interesting to hear different guides say different things and look at different sides say different things. Even in these myths, there are so many different versions of it. Instead of thinking which one is true, which one is false, who's saying the right thing, no. Everything is part of the truth. And what is important is what resonates with you. So take that resonates with you, and there is always a lesson or what is so called the moral of the story, in a sense, in all these stories and history and myths. So go deep into, feel deep into, beyond the words, beyond the stories, and extract that essence for yourself. Greece, this trip feels like it's a bridging point for what has happened in Egypt in our journey in March and what is coming forth in November. I didn't see any of that until yesterday after I finished the Phaistos Palace, and I was on the bus and I felt my sacral, my heart space, my solar plexus, I was feeling all of it. They were activating, something was moving, energy was moving, and then there was a heart opening sensation, and that whole 1.5 hour journey back was me integrating it energetically. And the first half of my journey in Greece, I was in Mount Penteli. It's in Athens, not in the city central. It's up in the mountains, and I just knew that right after Egypt, I had to go to that mountain. I didn't know what it was about. And then I went there and visited the Duchess Palace, and I visited a monastery, and I just allowed my legs to bring me where it needed to go. I visited Devil's Cave, and obviously Temple of Apollo, Temple of Poseidon. Everything in that first half of the Greece trip was a lot of clearing of distortions, clearing of overlays, because these places, these historic places, they date back to thousands of years ago. And the original function and use of this place, the original energy of that place, over time, when different civilizations used it for different purposes, it changed in its frequency. And, you know, whatever they did there, there are a lot of also things that are being manipulated in that area. Not all, but some of these very powerful sites, they feel like it's so much overlays of different things. It's not good or bad, but it's just the energy of it. And there is a lot of clearing. So I will explain it in this way. It's kind of like, you know, when we first come into this physical body as a baby, from a soul into a physical body, our divine template, our divine essence, we don't have things like, I need to show up a certain way, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is how I'm supposed to act. All these things are learned, are picked up as we grow, as we develop, and as we become an adult. And then all these things come into our being to make us who we are up till today. So there's a lot of these belief systems, a lot of conditioning, a lot of programming, and again, it's not good or bad. It's just our divine blueprint, and then there are all these layers coming through. Whether they assist you or they are holding you back in some case because of certain limiting beliefs or conditioning from family, from ancestral stuff, from, you know, social media, whatever. What I'm talking about is that there are all these sort of like layers that are on us. And I believe that we go through this so that we remove these layers like an onion. We peel out all these different layers, and at the end of the day, we remember who we truly are, remember what it is exactly inside of us. We reconnect with this essence that is eternal, this light that is within, this spark that is within us. And so if we as beings on this plane with the physical body have these things that we peel away to remember our true essence, then the earth has this as well in different sites. The peeling away of the different layers that has been placed on each other, civilizations of the civilizations, we peel away all of that to remember what the true essence really is. So that was what I felt for Egypt, and then the first half of my Greece trip. So it felt like an extension coming from Egypt, finishing the trip, and then into Greece. When I flew to Crete and arriving here, that was when the energy shifted into almost like an opening. And now I'm realizing that after the visits to the Knossos Palace and the Phaistos Palace, I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, and it will make sense leading into the November trip. The Temple of Knossos. If you've been to the temple before, I didn't manage to film a lot of it or film anything while I was there because there were a lot of people. But that place was a lot more restored than Phaistos Palace. So when I was in the Temple of Knossos, in the video of the transmission, I have said that it feels to me the journey of remembrance. It's a temple, a palace, or a place of remembrance. The myths and stuff like that, I'm not going to go deep into it here because I already said it in that video. So if you haven't watched it and you're trying to make sense of it, feel free to go and watch that. I'm not sure if I said in that video it felt like a very masculine, a very solar place. But it doesn't mean that there is no feminine at all. Because there is both, but then if I compare it to the Phaistos Palace, then it feels very much solar, and Phaistos is lunar. The message that came when I was in Knossos Palace was about remembering truth, coming home to ourselves. And somehow, when I saw the art representations on the walls of the throne room, the central court, it felt to me that the masculine was almost like a very pushing his way through kind of feeling, and the feminine was honoring her truth and somehow bringing him back to softening instead of that, hardness in a masculine. That is how I personally feel about the masculine energy and the feminine energy at this point, right? At this point. And I have to say that it's not about women being better than the men, or a woman now coming to power and ruling and controlling. Like, no. That is still duality. Now we are shifting into unity. We're shifting into converging, harmonizing duality to non-duality, which is essentially what this two palaces were showing me. So let's not jump the gun. Let's go back to the Temple of Knossos. So in there, that was what I felt. That there was a lot of feminine energy that was assisting the masculine to soften and come back to the heart as well. I picked up on that, but I didn't really dive too deep into that because a lot of stuff was coming up about the labyrinth and the remembrance and the myth, really a symbolic meaning of our journey home to ourselves. And then the masculine feminine bit was like at the side. I kind of knew it, but it was there. I didn't talk too much about it in that video. And then I came to Phaistos Palace, and it was such a contrast from the Knossos Palace, because Knossos Palace is very much restored. You can see, the restoration, how it would have looked like. Not all of the places were restored, but at least there was stuff to see. I spent quite a while there. And then in Phaistos Palace, it's completely not restored at all. Everything is in ruins. There are just bases of the palace, like stones left, and just a couple of explanation boards here and there. However, it was such a representation of the lunar side that the feminine side as well of you don't need to see, you don't need to prove. Instead, you feel. It's inwards. You go inside and you feel the place. And you use that inner compass to guide you on where you need to go, what this place is telling us. And as humans, myself, of course, included, we always seek for something. We always look for something. We always look for validation. We always look for, what is this trying to tell us? Like, I want to know. What is this? I want to know. I need to know. And in that experience, it was a really humbling one and a beautiful one, because it reminded me that there is no map for this journey called life. Nobody can tell you which path to take. Nobody can tell you which is right and which is wrong. You have to walk it yourself. And very interestingly, there is this very famous thing called the Phaistos disc that was found in this palace. And this disc is a spiral-ish disc that has symbols on it. This thing has not been decoded yet, so nobody really knows what it's talking about. But what I felt into as I was channeling, and you would have received the transmission in that video that's already up, it feels like it's a sacred map. It's a sacred map, a journey home to ourselves. So it's very similar to the message of Knossos as well. But there is a deeper layer in this, because it is almost a remembrance of our womb space, our sacral, the cosmic womb, the void. And as men, even if you don't have the womb, the sacral area is energetically there. You have a sacral chakra. So the void, this message applies to everybody. And maybe, yes, women can feel it more because biologically we have it, and the womb space is the space of creation. I see it like a portal where a soul comes through into a physical form. It is the void, the darkness, where life is birthed. And the spiral, on one side of it, there is a flower. And I was speaking to my guide in Egypt. We are best friends now. And he told me, oh, the flower of life. I didn't see that because it looked like a daisy. And I was like, oh yeah, like flowers, okay, obviously they are tuning into nature and they're drawing nature. But when he said the flower of life, it makes a lot of sense, because at the end point, or the starting point, because it's cyclical, it's a spiral, is the flower. And if that is the flower of life, then perhaps the message here, the sacred map and the journey home here, is the remembrance of the interconnectedness of everything beyond this, just our planet. The interconnectedness of us as beings, of us with nature, with things, with other beings. And when I first saw the flower of life, or felt into the vibration of the flower of life, I didn't know what it was. I didn't research too much about it then, but the first feeling that I got was eternity, the message of eternity. And perhaps it is a message as well, that a remembrance of our eternal beings, that when we die, we actually never truly die, because there's this essence inside of us that is eternal, that is always there. We might be in a different body, in another life. We might take a different form. We might be, I don't know, an animal or the ocean, but the remembrance, the essence is there. So when we realize that we're eternal, then actually, and that we are all interconnected, then there is no more suffering and there's no more fear. Because really the root cause of all fear is the fear of death. But if we remember that we're eternal beings, then the fear of death dissipates. And there's nothing really to fear. It is an abstract concept. When I first received that concept, that teaching, it was hard for my brain to comprehend, and I can't say that I've truly integrated and comprehend and understood this thing that I'm talking about. It's just coming through and I'm just sharing because, you know, one day I might look back, or some of you might resonate with it, and it might help click some puzzle pieces into place. So this whole Phaistos disc thing, I was sitting there, and in that video I was channeling this spiral that I felt in from my heart to my sacral, and then the midpoint ending or beginning in the solar plexus. And then when I opened my eyes, I saw so many like shells, like spiral shells on the floor. It was such a confirmation from the universe as well. And on the bus home, I was like, okay, cool. Before I even stepped foot into Phaistos Palace, I felt a lot of that womb energy. I felt a lot of that feminine energy that was coming through, so much more than the Temple of Knossos. And now with that two palace, there was that contrast given that Knossos was like the solar, and then Phaistos was the lunar. And it shows in how much you can see in Knossos and how much you cannot see in Phaistos. So the message here, when two of these places are energetically brought together, was about a harmonization of solar and lunar, the harmonization of masculine, feminine, the harmonization of head to heart. Because, yeah, in terms of masculine energy, it feels to me that it's all about logical thinking, you know, being really pragmatic and all of these head energy. And then women, feminine energy usually is very intuitive, right? You can't really explain, you know, why you feel a certain way, emotional, and all these things that are the moon. So it's very related to the moon. Sun, moon, head, heart, dark, light, or light, dark. A harmonization and a convergence of these two energies to bring it into unity. This is something I'm not sure if I shared here before, but I see our experience like a pendulum, where we have to experience both extremes before we find the center point, before we find equilibrium, before we find harmony. Swinging to one side, and then the other side, like a pendulum, and then the other side, and then the other side, and then slowly it rests in equilibrium. And that is the point of convergence, that is the point of harmony. So it was a very huge realization for me on the bus ride. I was like, oh my gosh, this whole thing is showing me how humanity is moving forward in terms of experiencing duality, right? And then moving forward into what is so-called the golden timeline, what is so-called the new earth, is actually the convergence of duality into non-duality, into unity, consciousness. And that is the high heart space, which was why my heart was like exploding. It was exploding on the bus ride back. I was like, what is all this energy in the heart space? The energy of unconditional love. It was like exploding. I just want to love everybody. And then it dawned on me that my friend and I, who are bringing this next Egypt trip together, our first ever call that we had to share a little bit about what's been coming through the messages for this upcoming trip in November, the word, so what I said was harmony, unity, I think that was what I said, and then she said convergence. And so the theme is convergence, harmony, unity. And I didn't know what that was all about until yesterday on the bus ride back. I pieced it all together. Everything came together and it finally made sense. And that's why I said this Greece trip is like the bridge. The bridge of what was done in Egypt in March, and even before actually. My first ever trip to Egypt was in November of 2024. That was a preparation. And then this March trip was a preparation. And then this Greece trip also is part of the whole picture, and I mean everything else that we're doing as well, but this is very clear. And then the trip coming up in November, and who knows what are the trips and wherever other places that we're called to go. All of it is coming together, and the message is we are clearing, we're bringing a lot of truth back to light, we're bringing our own individual divine templates back to light. We're taking that back to ourselves, because we've given our own power away to someone, to an organization, to a system for so long, and now we're taking that back and finding that remembrance of us. That's how we birth the new earth, that paradigm shift. So a lot of things to process, to integrate energetically. I don't know if you're feeling it, because obviously I'm just talking about Greece and Egypt, but I know there's so many people in so many different places, these ancient sites. So many people are being called to these places for whatever reason, whether you know consciously or not, whether it's subconscious. Everything is sort of interweaving together, and it's just crazy. I mean, humanity is ready. We're ready. Earth is ready. Everyone is ready, and therefore there is so much of this happening right now. And more than ever, communities are important. We need to come together to exchange our codes, to exchange our energies, because I felt that there are a lot of information being energetically sealed in these sites, through sacred geometries, through symbols, right? Through languages that we haven't yet decoded and deciphered. And perhaps it's not meant to. Again, we always seek to understand something. But just like light language, it's just energy, a transmission of energy. And how do you decode that? Inside. You feel it, and you feel that for yourself. It is the essence of it. And I will always remember this, that my yoga teacher shared in one of his lectures. Sanskrit, mantras. Obviously, Sanskrit you can translate it, and certain mantras have a meaning. But the meaning wouldn't make any sense to you if you don't connect with it. And how you connect with it is through the chanting, through the vibrations of it. It doesn't have to be chanted out loud. It's inside. And therefore, there's a practice called the mantra japa practice, where you do it for 108 days, 108 times for a set amount of days. And it's when you keep doing it and keep doing it where you're able to peel away the layers of the vibrations. You peel away the layers of, first, the words, right? How it sounds like, to tap into the vibration, how it feels like. And then through the vibration, you tap into the essence of it. And this example that he gave, it's like, you order food on a delivery app, and the driver delivers the food to you. You don't eat the box. The box is the mode of delivery, or the driver is the mode of delivery. You don't eat that. You don't eat that box. You open it and you eat what's inside. And even if you eat what's inside, it's the nutrients that you're receiving. So the essence of it that you're receiving in your body is the same with light language, whatever language, mantra, Sanskrit, all these things, songs even, their vibrations. It's beyond the words that you hear, the words that you know, even if there's a meaning, but it is the energy that is being transmitted through that. An easy way to understand, when you listen to a song that is in a different language, in a language that you completely don't know. However, when you actually listen and connect with it emotionally, vibrationally, the melody, the way that the person sings that song, all of it can give you a feeling of whether it's a sad song or a happy song. And that is sort of the easiest way to understand what I'm talking about. That it is beyond what you understand, what you can see, what you can read, what you can hear, what you can comprehend. It's beyond that, and it is the essence, the vibration, the energetic signature of that intention, of a string of things. It's the same with sacred geometries. It is so complex that your brain can understand, but then perhaps when you meditate on it, perhaps when you sit with it and feel it, it's not something that I have to know again. Just let it be, and one day it will make sense to you. And even if it doesn't, it's fine. So coming back to why communities and coming together to share or to just be in the presence of each other is important, is because a lot of these things are sealed. In these ancient civilizations, there were very powerful technologies, and when we are in this cycle of greed, of wanting it for our own self-interest, fame, power, control, all these things, these technologies or skills, wisdom, understanding on how to control energy in a way, how to direct energy, could be very harmful if we use it in a way that only benefits us and disadvantages the other population, so that one person can be higher than the other of power and, start to control. Humanity is ready, and what I mean by that is that we are ready to come back and remember love. And when we operate from this space of love, a love that is beyond these labels of a romantic love, a familiar love, a love for a friend, it's beyond that. And I don't have words to explain what this is, but this this unconditional source love, in simplified words. When we are ready and when we remember that, that's when then the information will start to come back to us. So we're at a stage where we're ready. Not the whole population, but on a threshold, we are ready. Therefore, many people are being called to these different places, being called to come into union, being called to travel and connect with people virtually, physically, containers. Our energy coming together will unlock something. So that's my message. I think this is all that I feel called to share. Yeah, thank you for listening up to this point. And feel free to let me know in the comments below or through an email on what came up for you from this whole series. I receive all these emails with all my heart. I read all of them, and unfortunately I don't have all the time in the world and energy to reply to each and every single one of you, but it means a lot to me that you feel safe to share that with me. So thank you for all of your love and all of your support, and I will see you in the next one.